Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to another weekend workshop. We're so excited today to have Elizabeth Hesp joining us. As you can see, she'll be talking about boosting your profits with cultural intelligence. I, for one, am super excited to get into this topic today. But just before we do, I want to introduce myself. For those who haven't met me before, my name is Carrie Ramsey, and I'm the project manager for the Weekend Project, which is led by Queen's University and is funded by FedDev Ontario through the Women Entrepreneurship Strategy Ecosystem Fund. And WeCan actually stands for Women Entrepreneurs Can, which of course we've known all along, but has been wonderful over the past couple of years that we've been holding these workshops and of course programs and services. It's been so encouraging to see the community come together, support each other, and really be such a vibrant force for good and for making some incredible difference in our communities and around the world. So while we're just getting started today, we would love to get to know a little bit more about you. So why don't you drop a note into the chat right now as I'm continuing to let some folks in from the waiting room. Let us know where you're connecting from. Let us know as well what your business is. If you have a link that you'd like to share, we would love to see it. We would love to get to know about you and your business. That could be a link to your website or your LinkedIn profile, whatever you would like to share with us today. We've had, I think, more than 70 of these workshops at this point. So some of you have certainly been a part of many of them, and we're so grateful for that. But for some of you, this might be your first time. So if it is, welcome to the Weekend Project and welcome to this incredible community of women entrepreneurs who are launching and growing, sustaining some pretty amazing initiatives and ventures. So while you're taking a moment in the Zoom chat right now, just to let us know where you're connecting from, I want to take this opportunity to acknowledge that I am connecting to this workshop from the Bay of Quinte region, which is the ancestral territory of the Huron, the Anishinaabe, and the Haudenosaunee peoples. And as I was thinking about this land acknowledgement today, I was thinking about a conversation I had just last week with an Indigenous elder who is actually one of our Weekend clients. She's started her own business in the last couple of years, even though she had been working for decades and decades for other people. And she now is so excited to have launched her own business. And we were on the phone actually, because that's her preferred mode of communication. And we were talking for well over 30 minutes. The time went so fast, but I was learning so much from her just from listening to her talking about barriers that she has encountered as an Indigenous woman, how she's overcome some of those challenges. And you know what, it occurred to me as I hung up the phone, well, we don't hang up the phone anymore. I guess we turn off our phone. I turned off my phone and I thought, you know what, I don't listen enough. I talk a lot. I talk a lot in a lot of the programs and trainings that we provide. But you know what, we haven't yet even provided a training on how to be a better listener. And a big part of truth and reconciliation is listening to the truth of our Indigenous peoples. And that was a lesson that she taught me just a few days ago that I thought I would just share, because I think that it is so important that we take the time not just to assess for ourselves what we believe is true, but really to listen to the stories and the experiences of others around us. So I thought I would just integrate her story today as a part of our land acknowledgement. Thank you so much for you who are joining us in the chat, who are telling us where you're from. Please take a moment to do so if you haven't already. Just a reminder, today's workshop is being recorded. And so if you want a copy of it, I will be making a note in the Zoom chat how you can get a copy of that recording. It will be actually on our Weekend YouTube channel, but I can provide a link to that. So we'll get started here in just a moment. Elizabeth is going to be presenting, and I'm so excited she's back with us. She actually has been a coach for the Fusion Coaching Program, which is a part of the Weekend Project. That was, I think, already last year. Already last year. Time flies. And she is just so wonderful. Speaking of listening, she's an incredible listener, but she's also a wonderful trainer. And so I'm looking forward to what she has to share today. If you have a question, you can always put it into the Zoom chat, but Elizabeth really will be taking up the Q&A at the end. I will be active in the Zoom chat, so I'll be noting questions where possible. And at the end, we'll try to have time to cover as many of them as we possibly can. But I also know that Elizabeth will be providing her contact information at the end if anyone would like to follow up. Perhaps your question didn't get answered. I know that she will certainly be happy to chat or to provide an email response. All right, so thank you everyone for joining us, and make yourself comfortable. Grab a notebook if you'd like, a pen, a cup of coffee, or a glass of water, and let's jump in today. Elizabeth, it's such a pleasure to have you with us, and I would love to hand you right now the virtual microphone.
Thank you so much, Carrie, for that wonderful introduction, for the land acknowledgement, and for making this workshop possible. Big thank you to Weekend Project at Queen's University too. So here I am talking about a topic which is very dear and close to my heart. And I was just telling Carrie in the morning that I'm pinching myself that I'm able to do it. I would like to start with extending a warm and hearty hello and welcome in my mother tongue, which is Bengali. So here it goes. Namaskar and Swagatam, which means hello and welcome. So my name is Elizabeth Hesp, as Carrie introduced me, and I will be a presenter for the next 90 minutes during this workshop as we learn about cultural intelligence. Two big words, but I'm going to tell you this right at the beginning. We all know about what is cultural intelligence. We were just not aware of these two words being together. So here we go. Today's workshop takeaways. I'm going to start, and I was planning to start straight on with the more research-based and technical aspect of cultural intelligence. But the reason why I'm here and I'm talking about this is because of my personal journey, learning about the importance and value of cultural intelligence, and also that this is something that is a capability that is very important to sustain diversity at all levels, especially in multicultural situations. Then we will go on to understanding the definition of culture, definition of cultural intelligence and culture. And why it is important for us business owners, especially in Canada, in this multicultural marketplace that we have, and with globalization present as we are using online platforms to reach clients, suppliers, anywhere else in the world. We will also learn about the 10 cultural clusters and the 10 global cultural values and how they inform our cultural intelligence. We will also go into the 4 CQ capabilities, which is a vast amount of information. I will be just touching the fundamentals and how you may apply them. My 5-step plan will also be on a slide to help you support your cultural intelligence. This is not a substitution for the research done by scientists over time or the research-based assessments in place to help you improve your CQ, but this is what I have learned, and I just want to pass it on to you to support your cultural intelligence. And then, of course, through the presentation, we will learn that here and there how to apply cultural intelligence to boost your business revenue and to have this welcoming, trust garnering environment, which of course what we want to help us, get the profitable outcome that we are looking for as business owners. Few words about myself. So as Carrie introduced me, I'm a coach. I'm an ICF certified coach, and my work focuses on helping men and women transition career changes. And I also coach women entrepreneurs who are just starting or they are changing their business. And recently I've started leadership coaching. I'm also a certified cultural intelligence consultant. And yes, I am the founder of Elizabeth Hesp Coaching and Consulting based in Kingston, but providing my services globally. On a personal note, I'm an immigrant and a settler in Canada. I come from India. I have lived in Kingston for more than 25 years. And I'm married with 2 kids. Well, can't call them kids. They are teenagers as of now. And we are a mixed race family. I have had the opportunity to live in the Netherlands, and I have also had the opportunity to travel a bit around the world and see different countries and embrace and learn about different cultures. And I happen to speak 4 languages. Been a former board director of the Kingston Art Council, and for me personally, the words kindness, culture, and community, they hold a special place in my heart because it is the basis of our connection. It is the basis of our communication, collaboration, and the foundation of our humanity. So we get to start now with my story. As I said, I grew up in India, and while growing up there, I was exposed to this tremendous diversity present around me, and it all kind of stays together quite well in this brilliantly diverse environment. While I was growing up, I heard this phrase, unity in diversity. And we all, understood that we need to come together with our cultural differences, and we are better from that. But there was something more. How we are doing it, that was never on the forefront. And from time to time, I was curious, how are we really doing it? Staying in peace with each other and connecting with each other, doing business, learning. So that was my experience back in India. When I immigrated to Canada, of course, it was a different kind of a diversity. It was a more international scale. And suddenly I was out of one system and kind of thrust into another system. And I had to quickly learn. I had to learn the patterns. I had to observe. I had to listen. I had to, in the moment, apply my own awareness and, of course, be aware of the other so that I can be in sync, in rhythm. There was no book that I studied, and I was not coached or mentored on that. And sometimes I made mistakes, but over time I learned how to do it. And it so happened that I got the opportunity to go with my husband and live in the Netherlands for about just under a year and a half. He is from there. And that was a remarkable experience because it's a non-English speaking country. In India and in Canada, English was my similarity. In the Netherlands, there was nothing to kind of connect other than, okay, reference point is my husband and my in-laws family. So I had to learn to very quickly to overcome the language barrier because everywhere Dutch was spoken, small gatherings, large, official language is of course Dutch. So I learned Dutch under 3 months, very good instructor, very good school. And, but still, beautiful country, lots of art and culture, but I was happy to sort of come back to Canada and no offense here, but Canada was that middle ground was, the language, and of course, being a land of immigrants and so many different diverse cultures. Meanwhile, we were also raising our family. So here I was, a new mom, raising, 2 kids in a biracial family, mixed race family, in a new community. Kingston was still relatively new to me, and helping them to understand their own identity, heritage, and culture, but also trying to feel that belonging, feel that comfort level. And I think parenting was one of the biggest challenges for me, to be able to support both my daughters in being able to get to that point of equilibrium. Today, of course, they are doing great, and no worries on that account. Traveling was something that as a family we have done, and myself individually, of course, in India, I did that, and then across the world, any opportunities that came up. I love embracing new cultures, learning about them. So that also expanded my horizon quite a bit. But when I started my business, and I launched it in Kingston, I came from a background in science. I jumped into the arts, not a clue. but I had to do it. That's a different story. And then I stepped into the world of business. And I had these great ideas. I was bursting with creativity and, trying to innovate fabrication, trying to innovate my presentation. And I thought everyone is going to be gung-ho about it. No. I was often told it is not done like that here. We do not do it that way. It is not going to work because you want to try something new. And of course, I could have been feeling, dejected, rejected, feeling sad about it. But I understood that the pattern that they were used to, I was trying to break that up a bit. I was trying to rearrange it. It was not something that they didn't want, but they were just not familiar with it. And this is business. It's about buying, selling, and making profit. So that was a total learning experience for me. It was a learning curve, but I was able to sort of make them feel comfortable and take small steps towards, making them understand that this is what I want. Maybe we can try it on a very small scale because I do understand where they're coming from. From doing business, I also started doing collaborative arts project. And I think that was the culmination. Starting visual rhythms, architecture, dance, music in 2013 and completing it in 2018, I kind of came across this whole learning awareness of a very different kind. You have to understand from a cultural point of view, there was the sciences, I jumped into the arts, then business, and back to community once again, like I was in India. The next slide is going to show the conceptualization of all my lived experiences, understanding, and this awareness that there is something else. I could not put my finger on it as to what it was. Was there a name? Was there a label? But that's what we're going to get to. So let's check in with the next slide. I am going to turn off, I'm going to try and turn off the video panel here so I can see my slide. There we go. Yes. So this image is called Mirrored Rhythms. It's one of the images that was shot at Isabel Beda Center of the Performing Arts here in Kingston on Queen's University. As you will see, there is a ballerina on the left, and there is a Bharatanatyam, classical Indian Bharatanatyam dancer on the right. The ballerina is Ayla, and the Bharatanatyam dancer is Kavina. One was studying at Queen's University, and the other high school student completing high school. Fabulous young youth artists. But what is this image making you think and feel? As you can see, both are standing within their own spaces in full control and presence of their art form, ballet and Bharatanatyam, structurally occupying and filling the space. But what else is present there? When I conceptualized the image, and here I will have to read, I conceptualized it based on the foundation of a poem. That poem was also the foundation of the start of my marriage. It is written by Rudyard Kipling, I'm saying that right. And the name of the poem is The Ballad of East and West. And here it goes. Oh, East is East and West is West, and never the twain shall meet, till earth and sky stand presently at God's great judgment seat. But there is neither East nor West, border, nor breed, nor birth, when two strong men stand face to face, though they come from the ends of the earth. Brilliant. When two strong men, two strong women, talented and skilled artists, stand face to face, there is no East or West or cultural barriers, but only an awareness of self, dancing to each other's rhythms, mirroring each other's rhythms, communicating, connecting, and collaborating as equals. And when that happens, what can be achieved here? Let's look at the next slide. When that happens, we can achieve cultural harmony or cultural resonance. As this image will show you, also shot in the Isabel Beta Center, the three youth artists are standing in their own defined spaces, celebrating who they are, what they do, their art genres, the violinist, the ballerina, the Bharatanatyam dancer in the front. But in doing so, they are also a cohesive whole, three in one. This image was based on the concept of changes from within. And as we change, we come together. The structure was based on the spiral of the Nautilus shell. Many of you may have seen a Nautilus shell, and if you haven't, lots of pictures on the internet. And the Nautilus shell, in sort of in a technical way, kind of connects to how we create images. It is the basis of good technical photography. So here, the visual rhythm of the space, the visual rhythm of photography, the sort of conceptualized musical rhythm, dance rhythm, they all come together in harmony. The name of the image is Harmony Space-Time Rhythm. And as I created this image, I realized there are so many different rhythms, like so many diverse elements present here, plus the cultural diversity. But what is really happening here? How can we mimic this in the real world? It is happening in the real world. What is the name of that which is present, that is creating the cohesiveness, that is the glue? Thus started my curiosity and research from 2018 and here up till now. And here I am talking about cultural intelligence. So cultural pattern recognition. I spoke about similarities. I spoke about differences. Our brains are geared towards recognizing patterns and what is similar. When something is different, we tend to move back. We become uncomfortable. It is a survival issue. It's an evolution issue. So when we have cultural resonance, we are able to use our capability to glide and smooth from one cultural system to the other effortlessly, because we have few other elements in place. I mentioned awareness. There is also an element of confidence. There is also an element of trust that we can build between ourselves and the other cultural individuals or groups. And here there is a little blurb from the Frontiers of Neuroscience. It says, during human evolution, pattern processing capabilities became increasingly sophisticated as a result of expansion of the cerebral cortex. And big words, but literally the front of our brain, the prefrontal cortex, which is geared towards visual imagination, visual pattern recognition, and auditory pattern recognition. That's why we love the arts, we love music, we talk about brand imaging, we talk about stories, we like the pattern of stories. So based on that, the next slide shows us what happens when we are not able to do that, when we are not able to apply all the elements I spoke about, and cultural dissonance happens. There is a break, it's a discordant, it's not a rhythm, it's not a symphony, it's not a beautiful dance. There is cultural dissonance. In this image, we see two businessmen. They have educated themselves on cultural stereotypes, but they're not aware in the moment, and they're not observant. Plus, they're not listening to themselves and to the other person. They're trying to impress on the other. Hey, I know about you. And they are doing what they think is right, but not working in the moment. So instead of connecting in a business situation, they are actually brilliantly disconnecting. This is not where we want to be. What is cultural intelligence? It is a capability to function effectively in culturally diverse situations, both domestically and internationally. The emphasis on being able to function effectively. Now you'll say, Elizabeth, why is this important? Why do we need to be, having this capability? Because maybe my business is just local, or my business is just provincial, regional, within Canada. We're getting to that. So before we get to that, let's quickly see what the word culture is all about. Again, we're just going to touch the research. Here at Hofstede, a Dutch social psychologist, he defined culture as the collective programming of the mind, which distinguishes the member of one group or category of people from another. And the Cultural Intelligence Center tells us that culture is also a shared pattern of beliefs, values, assumptions, and behaviors that distinguish one group from another, or more simply put, is the way things are done here. And I've heard that before. So now that we know about culture and the definition of cultural intelligence, are we born with it? No, we are not born with cultural information. We are not born with a value system, belief system, education, knowledge. We are born with programming that is not there, other than that for survival. Culture is a learned skill, depending upon where we are born, our family, the mass media that we are exposed to. And this has a big influence on us from the time of infancy to our adult life. And as you know, teenage culture is big. That's when we are really establishing our identity. Mass media, workplace, we are learning the culture to interact with our colleagues and clients and employees, and of course, when we are traveling. So why is all of this so important in business? As business owners, we do know that business is all about relationship building. We have our suppliers, vendors, partners, clients, customers, and stakeholders. All of them connect with us in the buying and the selling and the delivering based on emotions. We're dealing with people here, and we're dealing with people's emotions. And what are the emotions based on? Values, behaviors, beliefs, assumptions, as Dr. Livermore says, at the Cultural Intelligence Center. So when we see the system that our business is based on, building our CQ knowledge is very important. Now, I'm going to request you, if you feel that this is something that you want to know more about, or you've had instances where you felt that there was a lack of cultural intelligence, just put in the chat, yes, I feel that this is valuable, and cultural intelligence is something that I felt before, and I didn't know there was a word for it, just like I have experienced. Just put it in the chat, like what are your thoughts so far, hearing my story and just understanding what cultural intelligence is and what culture is and how that kind of directly impacts business. Just a few words. So the other reason that Canadian business owners, it is important for us to kind of have this knowledge about cultural intelligence is Canada's robust immigration plan. It is not a trivial number that we are dealing with in the next 3 years. 400,000 people will be coming in, out of which by July this year, already 40,000 new permanent residents have been welcomed into our country. Now, they are not going to be concentrated only in the big cities. They are going to disperse, and actually smaller communities will be even more supportive of welcoming them with affordable housing, transportation, academic institutions for further learning, accessible resources. So For us here in Kingston, in Belleville, in Brockville, in Trenton, in Coburg, Cornwall, in the southeastern corridor of towns and cities, this is very important for us because the marketplace is going to become more diverse. We will have the opportunity of selling to people that we may not have connected with before. And it is not always possible to come from a place of knowing and learning. And as you saw the two men in the slide before, we could get wrong, we could go wrong. So to have the capability of being able to function effectively in multicultural situations, that capability is what we have to nurture. And it is important for us Canadian business owners, especially Canadian small business owners like you and me, where we are wearing many hats and we have to perform on a daily basis. So this awareness will actually indirectly influence our business profitability. Yes, we went over this slide, so I'm just going to skip over that. You can improve your cultural intelligence. If we look at intelligence by itself, we are sort of born with it and we can improve upon it, but we are born with it, a level of being able to perform intellectually. Emotional intelligence is very intrinsic to the cultural framework that you grew up in and you were used to, but cultural intelligence is between cultural groups, between individuals from two different cultures, either cross-cultural or multicultural. And what happens then is it is the spaces we occupy and the coming together that happens in those spaces, whether it's a digital space or a physical space. And it is a skill that we can learn about. And how do we learn that? That's what we're going to go over in the next few slides. Especially the 4 CQ capabilities will inform us more on how we can do that. Okay. The foundations of cultural intelligence, it depends greatly on the research done between the 1970s till now. And it is based on the cultural values framework. We will learn about that, the cultural cluster mapping, and the 4 CQ capabilities. So what is cultural cluster mapping? Here we are, the map of the world. We're all different people. We all have our heritage, tradition, roots, wherever we are coming from. And researchers have seen that there is a dominant culture always present in any particular geographical location. So where I originally come from, India, you would think I'm all Indian. Because I say I'm from India, but that is not so. My father was from the north of India, which is now actually in Pakistan. His family came into India after partition. And my mother is from the east and partly from the west. So we were multicultural in India. And you can say it was diluted, but yet a strong identity. My husband comes from the Netherlands, but there was some cross-cultural family connections. And now our daughters, they are from a mixed race family. So what is their dominant culture? Where are they from? And they live in Canada. So are they Canadian? Are they Dutch? Are they Indian? And they will say very proudly, I am Canadian. And good for them. So grouping people in these cultural clusters is an idea that emerged from the work of Simcha Ronin and Odit Shankar, who were interested in discovering if you could map the most significant cultural groupings found across the contemporary world. Now, this should be taken with some caution, because when we're talking about dominant cultures, we can easily put out the not so dominant cultures. There could be other subcultures present. So this is just a grouping, a clustering, but not an absolute reference point, and we'll get to that why. At this point, I'm just curious. I'm just wondering from each of you what your thoughts are about yourself. Do you identify from coming from a culture of dominance? Just yes and no, and what culture may that be? If you have, and just to give you some clues, if you have parents, grandparents who immigrated from another country, if you speak more than one language, whatever it may be that may help you identify what your cultural dominant culture is. So just put it in the chat. So countries in the 10 cultural clusters. As you can see, this is a big slide and I don't want you to feel overwhelmed by it. And I'm not going to go through the whole thing. I'm going to focus on the circle in the middle. There are 10 cultural clusters and it starts with Nordic Europe, the Scandinavian countries, and there's Denmark, Finland, Iceland, Norway. There's Southern Asia, where I come from, India, Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, Thailand, etc. The Arab countries, the Arab world, Bahrain, Egypt, Jordan, Kuwait, Lebanon, Morocco, Sub-Saharan Africa, and Ghana, Kenya, Namibia, Nigeria, Eastern Europe, Albania, Czech Republic, Greece, Hungary, Mongolia. As you can see, every part has etc. because there are many more countries in each cultural clusters. We've just picked up the dominant ones. Latin America, Argentina, Bolivia, Brazil, Chile, Confucian Asia. And this is interesting that the word Confucian is used, but it was integrated into that cluster because of the traditions, norms, and values and beliefs of Confucianism and how that influenced this particular culture. As China, Hong Kong, Japan, Singapore, South Korea, etc. Anglo, of course, where the Anglo-Saxon language is spoken, which includes Canada, the UK, US, Australia, etc. Germanic Europe and Netherlands, Germany, where the basis of the language is the Germanic language, and they are, of course, Austria, including Australia, Belgium, so on. Latin Europe, and I was wondering about French-speaking Canada, and they have included that in this cluster, which is interesting. So France, Italy, Portugal, Spain, etc. As we see these clusters, we are going to talk about values, because we checked in with the slide at the beginning about culture, and it talks about culture is influenced by values, beliefs, norms, assumptions, behavior patterns. So cultural values framework. If you have had the opportunity to study organizational behavior, cross-cultural psychology, you may have come across Hofstede's work. Hofstede is a Dutch psychologist and management researcher. And in 1980, he came out with the Hofstede's cultural dimension theory. 6 values, and as you can see, they are power distance. And what power distance really means is, are you a believer of equality, or do you like to keep your distance from the person who is in power? Collectivism and individualism. Here, the focus is on the individual, whether, we are marketing to the individual or we are marketing to our family. What is the prevalent culture? For example, in India, I can say the marketing is done to businesses market to the family, because family values are very important. When I go to an Indian restaurant in town, we're talking about our children. We're not talking about ourselves, we're talking about our children. So it's a collectivist culture there. Now, am I a collectivist? I'm more of an individualist. Of course, I've been in the West, sort of equal in the East and in the West. So I would say I would be a mixture of both. Uncertainty avoidance. Do you have a high uncertainty avoidance index, or is it a low uncertainty avoidance? In Canada, we have a high uncertainty avoidance index. Femininity versus masculinity, or nurturing, or competitiveness. Short-term versus long-term orientation. So short-term, traditional, or futuristic long-term. Restraint versus indulgence. This particular value has come and gone. And as you will see in the 10 cultural values, this is not there. So here we go on to the next slide. And this is Hofstede's model of national culture. And the focus here is on just getting this dominant estimate. It's a dominant estimate. Again, to be, exercising caution that it is not an absolute, but it is a dominant. So there can be variabilities. And I'm not going to go into the specific of this. If you want, you can ask me for a PDF. But as you can see, I'm just going to point out Canada, where the power distance is low. The individualism is high. Uncertainty avoidance is high. Masculinity is high. In comparison to where I originally come from, India, the power distance is high. So it's always respected, sir, madam. I always, when I coach international students from that part of the world, I do inform them that here in Canada, that is not necessary. Respected, sir may sound confusing. Hi, hello is enough and sufficient, and it takes them time, but they quickly learn, as you know, we all do. So on to the next slide here. This is the list of the 10 cultural values as we know of them now. So I'm not going to go through them once more. As you can see on the slide, a few more have been added. And this is again a guide when we are doing business in multicultural settings. If we are aware of this guideline, not an absolute value, we will have an understanding of things, but not stereotyping it, but understanding this is the basis and there could be variables. The 4 CQ capabilities. This is the most important for us to have an understanding of. They are CQ drive, CQ knowledge, CQ action, and CQ strategy. So what is CQ drive? It's your interest and your confidence, interest in learning about multicultural situations, interest in learning about other cultures, interest in being excited about learning about other cultures, and your confidence in how you navigate multicultural situations, cross-cultural interactions. Without the CQ drive, the others tend not to be having a good foundation, because you can have knowledge, you can read books, you can be asked to, increase your capacity of understanding how to connect with other cultures. But if you do not have your intrinsic and extrinsic interest, then it may fall short. And as business owners, this is very important, because you never know today, tomorrow, who is going to be your next client, considering that the Canadian marketplace is expanding, as we speak. So what is CQ knowledge? It is your understanding about how cultures are similar and different. And I mentioned this way back, when we focus on just the differences, our brain really shuts down. But if we are able to acknowledge the differences, but focus on the similarities, then our brain actually opens up and is more receptive of new information. And again, it's a learned skill, building neural pathways to be open to learning in diverse cultural situations. It is a learned skill. And many a time we have to do it in the moment. I have had opportunities of connecting with clients in Canada and across the world. And as I am listening, and Carrie mentioned this right at the beginning, listening is so very important, because not all, information can come from books. You can read The Lonely Planet, you can have an atlas, you can read the encyclopedia, you can, but listening. the conversations that we have with each other, that is of prime importance in the moment. As we listen and we get even better at listening, we are gaining information to process the information. As we are comfortable with the differences and similarities, our brains process the information and we gain knowledge. So that's the way I have done it. CQ strategy. How can we build strategy? How can we plan for multicultural situations? Do we read up? That is great when we know we're going to be entering a multicultural situation. For example, the multicultural fair that Kingston Immigration Partnership would organize every year. And I think, they will be doing it once the pandemic issue is kind of reconciled and gets better. But great opportunity to kind of, if you're from around here, just to connect in situations like that and talk with business owners. Lots of stalls, lots of business owners present, and I always enjoyed interacting, learning right here in my community, and then being able to apply that in other circumstances, listening, observing, having an awareness, and then gaining the knowledge and applying it elsewhere. CQ in action. This is adaptation. This is adjustment. This is relating to working with someone else. And for today, we are just going to focus on CQ drive. So you may ask me, okay, Elizabeth, as a business owner, how am I going to improve my CQ drive? And since this is the foundation of the other 3 CQs, there are different ways to go about it. Check in with yourself. If you come across a client who is not from your own cultural group, how does that make you feel? Do you feel adequate in connecting, in communicating? Do you feel that you are in a good position to really serve in the fullness, of your business identity? What are your values? What are your beliefs? Is that an impediment, or is that actually creating a channel for communication? So those are things we can check in with ourselves, and my 5-step plan is going to help you with that. So taking it from there, we go back to the word diversity. When only diversity is visible and present, what happens? When only diversity is visible and present, you get questions like, where are you from? Oh, where did you learn English? Your English is very good. Suddenly, we could be othering. We could be othering based on cultural stereotypes that we have come across when traveling, or as projected through mass media, or noticing only the visible differences. Again, our brain kind of changes its focus. Visible identities, making assumptions, and our unconscious biases. Yes, we all have unconscious biases, even when we are educated about cultural differences. But when we are in awareness of our unconscious biases, then it gets better, and we are conscious that we are creating an assumption, making an assumption, and that we should refrain from that. Let me share a story with you. There's this woman at a restaurant, and she is sitting with her family, husband and daughter, and the server has come to take the order, and conversation is flowing. There is some laughter. Suddenly, the server asks the woman seated at the table, what is that accent of yours? Where are you from? Suddenly, it is pin drop silence. And the husband replies, she is from here. The server says, no. Where are you originally from? There's still pin drop silence, because the woman is suddenly processing the fact that she doesn't belong. And she doesn't belong after all these years of being in her adopted new country. That woman is me. It just happened a couple of weeks ago. And as I was processing the question and my feelings, I was able to understand this was a moment of cultural dissonance, in a way where cultural intelligence was not fully present from the person who was asking the question. So I was in awareness of how I was feeling, but I asked the question, why? And in response, the server was a white male. He said, I have heard that accent before. I have traveled. I would love to know where you are from. That was the watershed moment. He came from a place of curiosity. The only issue was how he had framed the question. And in a split second, I felt I had experienced a microaggression, because the person who was asking me was coming maybe from a place of privilege, something like that. When that happened, I understood that I need to respect his curiosity, because he also mentioned that he had been traveling places and, he was just curious. So the word curious made me want to respect that. And I went on to tell him where I'm from, that I learned English back in India, my accent. Yes, I hadn't lived in England or anything like that. And the conversation flowed. But that night I lay in bed and that feeling came back to me. Do I belong? Do I still belong? But of course, because I'm culturally educated and I understand my own cultural intelligence, I was able to support myself from within and turn that feeling, that slight uncomfortable feeling, into something comfortable. But if you're not, and you experience that, or you make someone else experience that, it can cause a disconnect or cultural dissonance. So what happens when we are present in a globalized community, as Canada is and the world is right now, and we bring in tons of diversity in the room, in the community, what happens then? We can get cultural misalignment, misunderstanding, conflict, decline in good customer service, loss of service excellence that we all aspire to. We want the good testimonials, we want the good feedback, we want people to like our business and what we do. And it can also be decreased business revenue. So my question to you is, have you ever felt this way, that there was a disconnect between you and your client? You needn't give details, just a yes and no. And to remember that we are here to learn. So this is not asking you for details or to make a judgment, but that we're here to learn. And as long as we have that interest in learning, we can improve. So just put it in the chat and that'll be awesome. So what happens when cultural intelligence is present? When it is present, we are creating belonging. We are creating belonging in terms of including, inclusivity, but inclusivity where all voices are heard, all presence is heard, is respected. And we are valuing the beliefs, the unspoken norms, the customs, the traditions, the intersectionality, where we are not making assumptions. So for example, just to give you an idea, you would think that I'm speaking English, I'm wearing this jacket, I'm here talking about this, and this is me. But there could be other layers to me, which you may not know about, ethnocultural history, intersectionality, behavior patterns, and how to support that without really knowing more about me. So your personal awareness and awareness of the moment will help you to clue in. It's a dance. It is definitely a dance. Okay, that was not the slide. So globalization, diversity, and CQ helps us to enhance our business. It helps us to support our well-being, puts us in a good place, helps us to support our clients, our suppliers' well-being, puts them in a good place. There's cohesiveness. Improved sales negotiation skills, because we have an understanding of where, what the person is coming from and how we need to sing the same song, dance the same dance. Increased performance, business performance, sustainable innovation, because we value diversity because it supports innovation. But to support innovation and diversity, cultural intelligence is required. Business profitability. As I said, it's a dance. And I like to say this, the dance of diversity is possible with the rhythm of cultural intelligence. It bridges the gap between people. So what is the 5-step plan? The 5-step plan that is just put forward to support your cultural intelligence. It is not a substitute for the research-based assessments, which is the CQ 360 report, and it is not also a substitute for the many books written on this or the articles written on this. This is just from my own end that I have, over the years kind of gleaned from my own lived experiences. So for me, it is always about awareness, not just in this sphere, but in all aspects of my interactions. Who am I? I always like to ask myself, who am I? And right away, my values come forward. My beliefs come forward, my behavior patterns, my biases, and identity. When I ask that question, I am put on the right spot in the graph, right spot in the room. And from there, I can relate. Because that also makes me understand the differences and similarities between myself and yourself. So asking the question, who am I? Am I in a place of privilege? Am I in a minority? Am I the one who is different in the room? I have many instances of that. Am I the one who can welcome the other? So just to ask, who am I? What can I do? Listening. Listening globally. Because you can listen to someone speak and then process that. But often it is not what is being communicated, but the subtleties of what is not being communicated. If someone is at the cash, to understand, okay, I hear you, I see you, but maybe I'm not hearing or seeing something else. And that could be the difference, but also a channel of connection. Be curious. Come from a place of, I don't know. Often, as in that picture of the two businessmen, we are trying to come from a place of knowing. We are trying to come from a place, I got this, I know you, but actually we don't. It takes days, weeks, months, years to get to know someone fully and well, and not to make an assumption that I know and I don't have to be curious, because being curious is also being vulnerable, being open to make mistakes. It's okay to make mistakes in our interactions as long as we learn from the mistake and move ahead. So I don't know, but I'm willing to learn, ask. Okay, how can I go about this? What would make you comfortable? How can I make you welcome? Observe the cultural differences and your judgments. Judgments, as soon as we judge, we actually shut down. Our brain shuts down in that respect. We have seen the difference, we have judged, and I don't need to know anything more. To observe that and check for similarities and focus on them to build rapport and trust. We all know business is about ultimately creating and sustaining trust. Hence, for business owners, feedback is so important. Trust comes from a place of confidence, and that confidence is created from awareness. So if I could give you 3 words to take away from today's workshop, it would be awareness, confidence, and trust. How to build trust. This is on my website, on my About page. This is my values. These are my business values based on my personal values. I am not going to go in depth about them, but this is based on research done in the past few decades where values and understanding values and an emphasis on values is gaining a precedence over everything else. It is that inner programming. And as long as we are able to build trust with the other, with our values mirroring the other person's values, focused on similarities, we are going to do great business, guaranteed. And that's where we need to be. And I know that you know everything that I've said today is not new to you, but it is the awareness that has come from just hearing about this and learning about this all over again. Imagine the Silk Road, where strangers would do business together and they knew about cultural intelligence. They just didn't label it that way. You and I know about this, but from today, hopefully we will be able to apply this even better. Okay, this is the interesting part. We are almost at the end of our workshop, and I would like to do the giveaway. So I am going to request you pick a number between 1 to 50 and put it in the chat, and we will pick a winner who will get a consultation on cultural intelligence and
You can guess
valued
more
at
than once.
$200.
We're watching. You can guess more than once. I haven't seen the number yet.
I'm trying to get my video back.
Between 1 and 50. It goes so fast. Oh, stop. I saw it. Stop. All right, here we go. I see the number. Okay, so is that one? I just want to make sure that nobody got it before that person. I got this, Elizabeth. Don't worry. I know it's very overwhelming when you're trying to watch.
I don't see the chat. Okay, all right.
Oh, it's okay. So Geraldine, if the number was 5, I believe Geraldine was the only one and or the first one to put number 5. So I'm just trying to verify that. That appears to be the case. So Geraldine is our winner today. Geraldine, I'll make sure that you and Elizabeth get to connect.
Yay, Geraldine, you can reach out to me at coach@elizabethhespcoaching.com. I look forward to hearing from you. So there is another draw too. And I have to close my video again because it's taking up my screen space. Okay, this is on my website. And this is again a chance to win a free CQ assessment. So if you can see me, you see this is the report, the CQ report. It's quite a few pages. And this is what digs into, the basis of the research and where you stand. There is no right and wrong here, is that there is always a room for improvement. So I'm giving away one of these for free. And the draw is next week on October 21st. Just go to my website. The link is right there, elizabethhespcoaching.com. Put in your name and email. There are 5 questions. You just answer them, and you'll be entered into the draw. Good luck. I look forward. So we are at the end of this presentation, Carrie, and here is my contact information. Connect with me. I enjoyed presenting this workshop, and I would love to hear back from each of you as to what was your main takeaway. If you have questions, just reach out. I'm always up for a conversation, with a cup of tea in my hand. The conversation is where it all starts. All good things start with a conversation.
So true. And I am curious if there's any questions that the group might have. I had jotted down a couple. I had a question, but I'm going to start with one, which was, I know you said that we were focusing first of all, or for today, on the CQ drive, but do you have any recommendations for boosting or building a CQ strategy? Did you want to just even allude to maybe that as well?
Yes. So this will be business specific. And not all businesses will have the same strategy. Each business has a business plan, marketing plan, branding plan, where you're located, who are you serving, who is your audience, who's listening to you, who is communicating with you, who are you serving with your products and services. So it differs, and that's why I did not go into the specifics of it. It will differ from business to business. You can just reach out to me, and we can do this even by email. If you can just tell me about your business, And important is, who are your clients? Who have you already served? Who are you looking to serve even more beyond that? And what do you sell? Is it a product? Is it a service? And then we can just go from there. And, just an email. I receive from you an email with your question and your information, and I will reply back to you. That's all there is to it.
That's brilliant. Yeah. So know your audience. And I guess whoever was asking the question, if you don't know your audience, it's good to dig into that, to do the research so you can come ready to say that as well, because that's definitely and I'm sure most of you have done that. It's a great way to go about it. Elizabeth, you had mentioned something on an early slide. It was close to the value section, and I was probably letting people in or something, so I missed it. But it was talking about how some cultures are masculine, some are feminine. And I think that the Canadian culture was noted, it was masculine.
Masculine, high masculine.
So could you just explain the difference to me again, just so I understand that?
Yes. So we are also an individualistic nation and culture. And most of these values, they go hand in hand. Masculine means you're competitive. It's not actually the gender. It is the value that goes with it. Feminine means you're nurturing. So my original country, we are sort of medium there, because nurturing is very, it's given precedence. So it's not what is expected, is what is given precedence, what is valued more, okay? And again, it's not an absolute, it's a comparative value. And in Canada, not that nurturing is not present. Yes, we are nurturing. But the precedent is, what precedes it is that there is that individualism, there is competitiveness. We are talking about things of how we can excel, how we can go even higher. So that is what is dominant. And to have an understanding that femininity, so nurturing, and masculinity, which is competitiveness, is present in all cultures, but what is more dominant?
So interesting. And we've had this conversation before, I think in some of our virtual cafes, how people are feeling so frustrated. And really what it's come down to is the fact that the prototype business out there is that you must be this. And women are saying, we don't want to be that. And so we're kind of going against the grain, pushing back, saying, no, if we have a business, we want it to be nourishing and or nurturing. Not to say we're not competitive. But it's just that is not the dominant. So it's so interesting when I saw that it went past quickly, and I appreciate, thank you for explaining that. Chantal, I see you're on the call, and there may be other Indigenous women as well. I'm curious, actually, in Indigenous culture, to me, femininity would be the dominant, would it not? Or am I wrong there? Because I actually, from what I've trying to learn and understand, it seems that actually the matriarch is almost of a higher on the scale. What do you think? Is there someone that wants to weigh in on that? I'm just kind of curious.
Hi, Chantal here. I'm learning the Indigenous cultures from my background. I wasn't raised in them, but from speaking with an elder who I consider family, although not blood family, he said the matriarchy is very important. And in BC First Nations, matriarchy is the lead. They choose the leaders for the next generation. But I wouldn't say, and this is just me from my experience so far, I wouldn't say that it's masculine or feminine. I'd say that Indigenous cultures recognize that all genders are valuable and all should be respected. I don't know if that answers your question, but that's what I know so far.
Yeah, that makes sense. Q, did you have something to add to that?
Yeah, and along the same lines, in terms of decision making, counsel is taken with the matriarch in terms of guidance and their perspective, and always with the notion of affecting the next 7 generations. So any of those decisions that are made are not made for right now, but how you impact and how you move all those things forward. But to the point, often it was have counsel with the women, but dealing with settlers, they like to talk to men. So that information was shared, and the message was not delivered by the female. The message was delivered by the men.
So interesting. Within one country, how we've shifted, and even now, I think we're fighting against the grain in some ways. Certainly from the whole idea of the Weekend Project and how women do business. It's really
I'd like
really
to-
interesting to think about.
Yes, I just like to interject here, Kerry. When we talk about leadership, and this has come up a few times in conversations within the community where I've been present with the other women business owners and so on, we often think about leadership for men, of course, but also women, as something coming from the top down, which is very patriarchal, which is controlling, which is ambitious and competitive. Not that that's a bad thing, but that's the only thing. And we judge each other when we talk about leadership and where we stand with leadership with those parameters in place. But leadership can also be a circle, and female leadership, women's leadership tends to be that. It is nurturing, yes, it can be very competitive, but it is more collaborative. And the question is, what does the world need right now? Do we need, that kind of leadership, the circle leadership, or do we need the pyramid leadership, which we have had? And what has that given us? We've gone, far and great strides in civilization, technology, business, but at the moment with climate change, the issues that came up in 2020, what kind of a leadership, what kind of a 21st century leadership do we need? And what values will it be based on? What will be the parameters? I think a shift is already happening, and I think it's going to go even further. And conversations like we're having right now are going to be of paramount importance in creating that shift.
Oh, I so agree. Mitt, you have a question. Do you want to come off mute? Go ahead, you can.
Yes, I wanted to ask that when I have seen so many times that when the woman goes to some meeting or to present the business against the same age man, she is not considered as serious. Or sometimes I heard some kind of comments behind my back that, oh, she's so chic. And they always, people always consider as beautiful and always consider, oh, she's not serious. They assume that. And it's not only one culture, but many cultures, because I'm dealing with many countries, including India, whether it's Canada, whether it's the States. Is the same mentality still there? And how can we come up with some ideas that naturally we are considered more serious because we are serious about our life, we are serious about our business and our career, everything. But people in the room, people in the meeting, they don't consider that if it's the same idea or conception from the men of the same age and same race, it will be considered more serious, and they take it as something to talk about and something to have meeting about. But if it's a girl or woman, it's like, we will let you know, or okay, let your sample here. And behind the back, they're like, oh, she was so beautiful. Oh, she was so young. Oh, she wants to do business, kind of thing, So is there anything that why is there, and how can we come up with some other ideas that it should not be there while we go for business meeting or something?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Thank you, Mitt, for that profound question. And I'm finding allyship in you with what I have experienced before too. And I think most, and maybe all women present in this space will have had experienced at some time or the other. A lot of it is based on what we've already discussed. So men would have an expectation of seeing other men enter the room where the business is going to be conducted or worked out. It's just an expectation. And in their experience, if that's what has married well, no pun intended, that they have always seen men in those situations. When a woman walks through the door, it's different. So as they focus on the difference, what happens? So again, back to neuroscience, it's the brain. It's a dissimilarity and pattern. And a door almost closes, and they do not take it seriously. Mind you, it's not a conscious thing. It's almost unconscious, and you cannot blame anyone for that. But it is unconscious. It is also an assumption that, okay, she looks beautiful, she looks pretty, and that is totally different from what she had intended it to be, but it is there. Now, how, and here actually the onus, and he will say, oh, Elizabeth, don't say that, but no, the onus is on the person who is feeling that and not feeling supported, which is the woman. The onus is on you and me to turn the tide. Okay, when I experienced such situations, and there were many, being a woman, I get intersectionality, being a woman, being an immigrant woman, being a woman of color, something I just started calling myself in 2020, interestingly enough, it kind of put me in a place where, okay, I'm going to change this. You are the change. I'm the change. We're going to change this one step at a time. It is for us to educate the other, whoever we are dealing with. I'm serious about this. I will be here no matter what. I will be walking through the door again, and I would love you to listen to me. I'm serious about this, and I would really appreciate if you took me seriously. It is up to us women to inform, to educate, and to show that we mean business. Not that we are here to do business. We mean business. I, as a woman, mean business. I am good to go with anyone else in the room to do business because I mean business. And that can be the basis of settling into an agreement. But it takes time, it is challenging, and in the moment it can feel very limiting, and you can feel also very vulnerable. So to inform yourself that this can be possible, and how are you going to navigate it? I will go back to, who am I? As soon as you ask yourself that question, who am I? What are you going to work towards? What are your values, beliefs? What are the behavior patterns that you can exhibit to show that you mean business? First time, okay. Second time, third time, okay, we're talking. And also understand where the other person is coming from. You mentioned different countries, and yes, different countries, you will get responses based on their atypical dominant culture. But not that there are no variables present, but once they understand that you mean business, they're going to take you seriously. But it's a process, and we have to be firm in that part. We have to continue, because we are doing something that may not have been the norm, may not have been the dominant way of doing things. Does that answer your question?
Yes, absolutely. And I want to add something, if I don't know, everybody agrees with me, but maybe women can help other women, and like whoever is on a position in a business or in a politics or wherever, they can certainly help other women to have their career on the path or something like that.
Absolutely, yes. Because we will understand the challenges that we face and to be able to help each other. But often, and many a time, in cultures where stereotypes are prevalent, and interestingly, I'm noticing that, and I can refer, because that's my lived experience, I refer to India, that, things are changing. Whereas before, when I was there, women can bring down women, and we know that, right? Like, it's done this way, it's done that way, maybe you don't do it that way. So you can hear from women too. But to understand that the winds of change are blowing, and that women are equal, and sometimes even more than equal in some instances, and that it is possible for us. And as someone put in the chat, we got this, we can do this. So to have a mindset, and we come back here to a mindset. I have gone against the grain most of my life. That is a completely different presentation workshop. And going against the grain, doing something new, you are showing that you are the change, that your beliefs, values are not to be pushed aside, and that you can make the world a better place one step at a time as you live your life, your career, your business, and make your dreams come true. You're actually a walking book and movie and source of inspiration for others like you. So even if you don't hear it or see it, you are being observed, because I've noticed that, women I have looked up to, and then when my daughters were born, I said, I'm going to do this. And I'm an introvert. Yes, I'm saying this on camera. I'm an introvert. There are things I am not able to do or cannot do. That's okay. I'm not perfect. And I struggled with that for a while, because as women also, there's this onus, we need to have everything. You don't need to be good at everything. You don't need to be perfect, but you are representing. You are representing your group. You are representing for others to get inspiration from you and to walk that path with you, behind you. Yes.
Yes.
Mhm.
Go ahead, Paula, go.
It's interesting. The question that was before, I apologize, I don't remember the person's name. What I have found in the past is, because I can quickly stand up for myself, but then quickly you're labeled as difficult. And I've had it, and it makes it very frustrating. I've sat in corporate meetings, and it was oh, well, when you get yourself straightened out, do you have a husband? Do you, like, what does that matter? Like, because, well, in the pet industry, it's male dominated. And even if there is a female part of the business, the male is always dominant. And it's very interesting having those dialogues and being the difference. Because in 2016, I had tentative contracts with some large businesses. I got a salesperson who was male, because they weren't willing to speak to me, because what do I know? And like, this was for contracts, but just seeing with the way the political landscape was at that time, I declined. And it was the right decision. But the thing is getting labeled as difficult, strong-minded, like, and it's nothing good. Like, I sat in one meeting that was like, well, we've always done it this way, and tapped me on my head. And I'm like, just because it's been done that way doesn't mean it was right.
Yeah,
Don't,
That's a
don't
great
say that
point.
comment either. That
don't
doesn't
tap
go.
Paula on the head, I think.
Yeah.
I think that's a new hashtag. Do not tap Paula on the head.
No.
Go ahead, Elizabeth.
I hear you, Paula. And high five for being a strong woman. Maybe sometimes even
tiring.
difficult. So what?
But I have to say, it's lonely and tiring, though. That's the
Yes.
opposite.
Yeah.
When you're always in a fight, it's exhausting.
Yeah. And when it is that way, and as you're feeling the exhaustion, that's where you could take a moment to nurture that exhaustion and understand how you can flip it. How you can flip, because exhaustion is a negative energy. But if we can flip it, we can create a positive energy, determination. And yes, the market may not be informed that a woman can do business in this particular industry. But when we flip the exhaustion to determination, you become the driving force and the power. It's okay to reach out to a mentor, another business owner who may have already done it. It's okay to be present in conversations with your truth, because this is your truth. This is what you're experiencing. It is challenging. It's also okay, as I said before, to inform those who are judging you, because that is a judgment, who are judging you, that you mean business, but how are you going to show it? So that is strategy, and it is business specific. It is the process that is involved in your particular kind of business, and how are you going to show that you mean business, and in maybe the way they want it or the way you want it, or coming to a middle point, because it's always about coming to a middle point. You can never satisfy everyone, and you're not even going to do that. You definitely need to satisfy yourself, support yourself, nurture yourself, because you're the one where everything is evolving from and coming from. But you will only be able to satisfy a certain number. So if you're thinking, I'm going to satisfy 100% and get that great, thing going, no, that rarely happens. And to aspire to that in a perfect world, maybe, but we know this is an imperfect world. So it's not that you're not going to face that, but that how are you going to navigate that? Hey, I've been rejected, doors have been closed on my face. That's okay, because I've closed doors on people's faces and overtures that I think was not going to work for me. So if you feel nothing is working, the best thing you can do, oh, not sour grapes, it didn't work. I can walk away from this. But where you see that something can work, what is your strategy going to be? How are you going to navigate that? That's where, it's going to be a little gap, and light enters through the gap, as Rumi said. So to look for that, and I'm willing to have a conversation with you, with a cup of tea or coffee, just reach out and specific to your business. As I said, put it in an email, and let's take it from there. But doing business, there is no absolute markers. Not every client will be your client. Not every supplier will be receptive to your needs and wants for what you want. We are dealing with a global world. We're dealing with people coming with all kind of different programmings, not just cultural, whole bunch of things, and stereotyping. So education, these conversations are important, and that's where I showed you that it's on my about page. Anyone doing business with me will know I value kindness. If you give me something else, I will need to walk away from you. I value integrity and professionalism. If you're working with me, I will have that expectation. You see, there is an expectation here and there is an experience. And there's a gap there. How do we bridge that? It's not only cultural intelligence, but everything else that cultural intelligence is based upon, So expectations, experience. I see this happening over and over and over again. How do we bridge the gap? And that's the strategy. And there are many steps.
I love it. We could go on for hours. This is deep, and it is wide, and it is just, we've scratched the surface today. Elizabeth, everyone has certainly been thanking you in the Zoom comments. Some folks had to head on to another meeting, but I want to thank you on behalf of everyone here for sharing your wisdom, your experience. And I love that you've shifted some things in our minds today, because that needs to happen, as you pointed out, for change to happen. So
yes.
Someone put in the chat as well, we're the change, we're it, we lead the change, like it's up to us. And there is power in that, and it is exhausting, but I love to think of a community like We Can, or another women's community you might be a part of, as being one of those tools in your tool belt where you can sort of hit a wall and rest for a moment, gather up your energy for, continuing on, because there are great highlights still to come for your business and your career. And there's so much positive mixed in with the frustrating. So let's keep moving ahead. Thank you, Elizabeth. I'm going to end today's recording. If anyone would like a copy, I'll put my email in the Zoom chat. Thanks, everyone.